The real quick summary is it's all about mold remediation. Got a mold problem? If you fix it early, it's not a big problem. We can actually make the house survive longer. If it's a major problem, we may have to tear it down. Unfortunately, one study recently showed that up to 10% of brand new First Nation housing is dead in 10 years. It didn't last 30, 40 years. That doesn't help our housing stock. And then one of the reasons the youth are involved this time, those of you that don't know why we've got a bunch of students here, is we brought them in yesterday from 3 high schools around here and showed them all the same contests yesterday, so they're prepped. So if you're having trouble following along, the student next to you has done this before, and he's going to be able to help out. So in mold remediation, you see the mold. You trace down its source. You find out why you got mold. There's a leaky window, leaky roof, leaky toilet. In this case, we looked over and we saw a leaky toilet. And we saw mold around the toilet hole. So we say, okay, the problem is down there. And we don't know how big it is. So we had to do a deconstruction to take off the floorboard, see underneath, discover the mold, rotten floor joist. Pull out the rot, saw it out, treat it with chemicals so it goes away. Sister the board to get the strength back, new blocking to hold up the new plywood that's going to go down, putting on a piece of plywood and cutting the hole. Now we put vinyl on top of all of that. And the vinyl you can see is pretty weird. Vinyl actually is following the tradition of tile floors, where you have waterproof tile and you bring a piece of tile up the wall as a kickboard. But it also means you have a waterproof basin. So these come up the wall, and the corner pieces, if you look at them carefully later, wrap around, and it's caulked before we put the vinyl in. So the corner is pre-caulked, and we nestle the vinyl into it so it's sealed watertight. So spill a lot of water out of a bathtub or even the toilet, it's not going to go anywhere. Okay? So that's where we got to. Now, normally we would just cover that over with trim. And a big piece of trim looks like this. Now, ours is a little big, but it's easier to work with that way. But this is floorboard. And it's hardboard. It's a particle board with a paint on the front. The fun thing is the paint doesn't chip, okay, but it's a good paint on the front. And you get lengths of this, comes in 14-foot lengths, so it's hard to ship and hard to handle. But 14-foot lengths, because actually that'll usually go across a whole room. And so you don't have any joints. Now, the problem is the corners. And if we want to take a quick look, give me my slideshow here. And let's see. It looks like that. When you do an outside corner, we just do a 45-degree joint. And it actually can be sealed up tight because this gets nailed to the wall and nailed to the wall, but you can actually put some small nails from this board into that board and from that board into this board, and they cross over at 90 degrees and they lock the corner. And so if you do those little extra steps and maybe put a little glue in there while you're at it, the outside corner won't open. The inside corners, well, an inside corner similar to an outside corner is always, you can't nail it except to the wall. And eventually it always opens. So in any good job, we don't do that. We do what we call coping. And as you see here, the one piece is square all the way to the corner. The other piece is cut to fit into the molding, called a cope cut. There are lots and lots of ways of doing it. That's what it looks like, this piece running along. So how do we get there? This is our straight piece. Let me see. I've got a camera here. We've got a straight piece like that. Now I'm going to bring that over like this. And now I'm going to turn this all around so that I can show it to you this way. Okay, so here's our straight piece that goes into the corner square. Nothing done to it. The one thing we could do to it, and it would be useful in these, if we were really doing these bathrooms, our bathroom corners are a little fat, and they have a little bulge in them. We could come onto the square piece and cut away a 45-degree angle all along the back here that would leave room for the vinyl or for a little problem in the corner. Doesn't matter because we don't see it on the front. And we don't need the strength right there. So you could actually saw this off, not touching the mold, not touching the contour, but at least in the meat on the bottom, which is usually the problem is right at the floor. And you can just whack that off in a rough cut. And then I can just shove that in tightly into the wall. Then this piece needs to come in and match. Now I want to show you a secret. If you see this, it's not a very good cut. It's close, but it's not that close. We can get it better than that, but you see a crack. Okay, so if I walk into the room and I see that joint, I'm going to see it. Now we're in the same room and you walk in. Do you see that joint? You don't see it anymore. That's the same joint. But it looks good, just like that. You know, I got my finger in the way. I'll get down out of here. Go like that. It's looking good. Okay? Because that's the way you walk into the room. So it means you can have a little error in this and get away with it, because getting a fairly good coat will make it. If you get the coat perfect, fine. If you don't, you can put a little plaster or putty in the corner and finish that up. Okay, well, that's the cheater. A little bit of plaster in your finger coming up. Now, there are lots of ways of doing it. This is the basic tool. It's called a coping saw. So it was made for doing that. It's also used for arts and crafts, for cutting fine things. Generally speaking, Westerners use it wrong. Now, I say Westerner as opposed to Japanese. Okay? I got my training in Shinto temples in Japan. So Westerners they always want to push saws. And we got great big thick steel with a handsaw. We get big and we stand up here and we shove our way through our cutting. How does a Japanese cut? He has a saw that has little tiny teeth on it, and they cut by pulling. And first of all, traditionally, the Japanese were very small people. So they tended to be on the floor. So when they came to work like this and they cut like this, they could cut very efficiently. And so their saws pull. By pulling instead of pushing, they can be thinner metal. So your metal is as good as a samurai sword because it's tempered steel. If you push with it, it goes crazy. But if you pull with it, it cuts well. And so it's tiny teeth, and they do very short, quick strokes. And they cut like that, which is totally different than what we do. But that's the way we use this, because if I push with this thing coming in, this whole thing wants to bend, and the blade can actually buckle and get loose. If I pull with it, it's pulling. This is just holding the tension up here. The strength of pulling, the resistance is all the way straight down to the handle, and I don't get a twisted blade. So these can be put in reverse if you want to, but when you buy it, it's always upside down unless you come from Japan, okay, where they go the other way. So we want to turn the teeth around so it cuts on the pull stroke. And we don't really usually want to do great big strokes because it's not a big tool. You want to do a little shucks. We're going to do this in a minute. So there's lots of ways to make this joint that we need to make. First of all, what we're going to try to do here is say, I want to make a joint. I want to cut this piece here. And I'm going to turn it around so the camera can see what I'm doing. So I set this one on here, and there's two of you working, so life is easier. One of you holds the piece in place like that. The other one takes a small pencil with a fairly good point on it. Now, I want to make a point about the pencil. You got a shot here in my pencil? Come in close on that pencil. We don't want this line, which is not next to the lead. I want this line, which follows the sharpening of the lead. Okay? And by using that line up against my wood, let's see, I can show it to you there. Instead of doing this to make a line, okay, you got that? Then if I do that, I make a line right next to the wood. Makes a big difference. Just that or that. Now there's a trick that the pros use, I'll tell you in a minute, that does it without a pencil, but you may not have a saw that has the capacity to do that. So, Kevin, you want to come play my partner and hold that in place for me? The idea is to hold it flat and square and just flush. And then I'm going to take this. This is easy, straight line. I put that pencil in the right place, and I do as good as I can. You'll never get it perfect with a pencil, but we can perfect this as we go. And where's my cutoff? It comes down there. And then I've got a little straight piece right there. Okay. And so we've got a profile of the cut. So that's what needs to be cut. And it's a little straight piece on the top that matches the straight piece over here. You see this piece coming in this way, so the flat comes square in. Okay? Now, the other way to draw that, which is really a nifty trick, is I thought I had an inside joint in my, let's go back to the slideshow. And I guess I don't have the inside joint. The coping saw. There we go. That's what we want, is this little square cut across the top, and then follow the whole thing so that it fits in like that. Now, I don't have the inside corner here. Oh, wait a minute. Can we see it in this picture? I thought I had a picture of the inside corner at one point. Well, there is an inside corner over there. No, that's not going to do it. What we want to do is when we cut a molding with a miter saw at 45 degrees, if you cut it like this, it just comes out like you see on the screen. If I cut it 45 degrees over that way, what happens is that when reversing it, it actually leaves a perfect line just like that, because that just comes out of the cut. But with a lot of scrap, 45 degrees sitting out here. Okay? So you got to go back and take off that scrap, but your line, the edge of that cut, is the line that we want. So a pro will just go in and he does what he calls a reverse cut. So it's not a cut that would work for an outside edge. It would work for an inside edge. So it's cut as if this was an inside corner. And the white part that's left is a perfect model of the molding. So the other one will match. But it's perfect match with the molding, except that there's a bunch of wood over here still sticking out at 45 degrees. So that's what we got to cope off and get off. So we're going to actually cut this in two ways without the big tools. And one of the other little details as we come across, take this one that I made already. Let me see if you come in and catch that on a detail. Now you see that's a square cut right up here. You see that square cut? Now, it sticks out a little proud in some of that. It would be nicer if that was cut back on with a relief so that just the white part stuck out, just a tiny bit next to the white part, because that's all we need to go in and make contact. We don't need all that garbage in the back. So instead of struggling with massive wood, we back cut it at an angle, any angle, just getting away from that line. It could be real sloppy, but the line's clean up on the top. You can come back with a file and finish that off. But the line is clean, and this is out of the way, because as much of this sticks out, and a little bit does right here and right there, it sticks out, that holds me away from the other piece. I just want that little edge, front edge, come in. So when you really look at these things in detail, you can't see it when it's finished. You can't see it at all with your eyes. But if you look at it before, it's a real sloppy cut over here that gets rid of the back stuff. So that's how guys do it faster. is they'll do it rather quickly with the back cut, and then they'll come back and finish that off with either sandpaper or, because I'm not sanding a lot of wood, I've just got a thin little piece left up by the white. Okay? Now, that'll make more sense to you when you get in to do this. What we're going to do is a two-step process. It's one way of doing it. People do this with jigsaws. People do it with miter saws. People do it with table saws. It's such a common cut that's necessary for any good trim job that people have developed a lot of ways of doing the same thing. Basically, they've got to get the silhouette on there to start with. Then we want to come up with my jigsaw that you took away because you didn't want it to get in the way. Thank you, Kevin. Now, this is the way the jigsaw has just been set up. We're going to use it this way. I would really bother to redo all the adjustments. There are adjustments in here that allow me to tip the shoe, which would give me a little angle in the wrong underneath side. Okay? This is square. We'll live with that. But if I get a little bit of an angle, I don't want an angle out here, but I can live with an angle down there. So if you're making a mistake, make it back that way. Or if you got a big bump, you can come up and just scrape off the thing like that. So we're just going to do the straight part. What do we got? Jessica, you want to come try and follow the line? Because you got a line of sight shot here. If you can roll, you could roll in. I got to make her work. She didn't do enough work yet today. Okay. Now I'll try to blow dust off for Jessica here. Now, you want to be careful where your fingers are. If you're going to really get in underneath, you got to have gloves on. I'm holding the shoe just a little bit for balance. You can stay up here if you want. And by the way, it's clamped down. If you've got somebody really working as a partner holding it, you could do without clamps. You're all alone, you use clamps, because otherwise you're chasing a piece of loose wood. Okay? Now, you can hear I'm going fairly slow. We went a lot faster in the plywood. And I've got a rough cut blade here too. I'm going slow because I'm really paying attention to my cut this time. But I'm going to do the straight cut as one step, and I'll blow on a lot. Now, I got off track. We're going off over here. Don't talk while you're working. Okay? Now, what I do is I don't try to fight my way back. I come back to the beginning. I make a stroke from where I got off, redirecting the whole thing. And as I look down, I see I'm missing my glasses. Now I'm grazing the line, blowing dust off. This machine blows it off a little, but not enough for this work. You can do it faster if you're used to it. I suggest doing it slow, because there's less cleanup. Now I'm going to get to that cursed curve and stop. I take a look at it. I'm kind of fat all the way down the line. We're going to actually graze that again. I don't mind being wide at this point. What I don't want is to be short, because if I'm short, I got to start over. Now notice also, that end, I don't know how long it is yet. It's extra. We don't cut it to length. We cut the cope on a rough piece. Don't go away. We cut the cope on a rough piece, and then when the cope is perfect, because we may move it 2 or 3 times, when the cope is perfect, then we cut whatever we're cutting on the other side, which is usually a straight cut or a miter. Okay? But those are all easier to do. So we came in there close. We're about ready to do that. I'm going to just get rid of the piece of wood. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make, I could do wide cut, get rid of some of this extra stuff, however much you want to do. A lot of people will just rough that out. There's some people do it all with the jigsaw going like this and going sideways, like carving. What we're going to do, though, is learn to use the coping saw. Coping saw, understand, is adjustable. It unscrews by the handle. What does that do for you? It means I can turn this wing like that. And now, if I tighten it back up, the blade's cutting this way. instead of in. Or I can go the other way. I can go backwards. I can go anywhere. If I'm inside a piece of wood, I can take the blade apart, go through a hole, put the saw back together inside the hole, and then work on the inside and with no cut from the outside. So I can work there. I can cut this way, cut that way, change the blade, pull it back this way, and cut a round hole inside a piece of wood, with the extension of that being the limit. I have one in my shop that's this long. So it has what we call a big throat. So we're going to cut it straight for the moment. You might want to use it off on the side. You get down below it. That gets your eyes really close to the work. You keep blowing a lot. All I'm caring about is that I'm maybe leaning a little bit under. Doesn't have to be any special angle. I'm actually going back. I see a bump here. I don't want it. So I'm scraping off a little bit of my straight cut. Now I'm getting into following that line. And then it's a little hard to see right here. I want to actually go that way. Okay, so I'll jump around. And we'll come in from here with a rough cut. I'm lining up with this little piece of the pattern. There's a little dimple sticks out there. It's for this groove. And so I'm going to line up, I'm lining up like that. I want to come in alongside it. So I'm starting way out here, coming in through the scrap. It's one of the reasons you might want to cut the scrap off early. Now, notice how just automatically I do this. I'm holding up here just to help control things as I'm coming down. My power, of course, is in the handle on the pull. Up, it's not even touching. On the upstroke, it doesn't even touch. When it does touch, it wants to stick. Now, if you got a partner like Kevin, he's going to hold the table sturdy because the table is moving. And it's good when you got a partner who understands when you think things. You think it'd be nice to have him hold the table, and there he is. Now, why is that not breaking off? We got a little lip underneath. It's because I'm getting a good back cut. But you see, I pretty well followed the little dimple. We're going to come in from here. Now, once you get started and you have a sturdy table, you can be like a jigsaw. Just make sure you're always focusing on where that blade is going, on that line. And when it seems to want to stick, you do shorter strokes, shorter, faster strokes, because they're easier to use near the handle. Coming back out of that little bump. And I'm turning. That's why it's sticking a little bit. So it's starting to look like something. And I'm going to stop there because this is what we're getting close to doing. So you can see we'll have a piece sticking way out here. We got the little bump there. Follow along. Come on up. Square off the top. Okay? So that's what we want to do, and then you test it by putting it up against a piece and see what it gives you as you're going. So we're going to do it in a couple of short pieces because we don't want to bother to do the whole thing. If we tried to do the whole thing, we'd have not enough time. I would rather have you make one for each of the team members, 2 good copes that we could make a corner with. Okay, and if we actually have time, that corner would be taken like this. This would be the back piece, like that. And the front piece would come up to it like that, and then it would get nailed in with finishing nails. But we're not going to get to that, I don't think. I think it's going to take you a while to cope it. Don't get in a rush. Don't get in a panic. Just get into the feel of doing that and understand you can always go back with either the jigsaw or this saw and cut away some bump that's really bothering you, doesn't want to fit in there. You've got a little piece of sandpaper. It doesn't do much good, but it can take off a little tiny problem. That would normally be done with some hand files. Okay? Now, little education. on the clamps, in case you haven't got it, but I think the students have understood this, these quick adjust clamps, to open them, you push the release, you see here, and I can open it. You can pull it up without the release, but you go down with the release. Once you're in place, you tighten it up. For the workbench here, we open it up a bit, we drop it in the hole, bring it up on the workpiece, drop that down, and tighten it up nice and tight. And now you can work on it. The whole bench wobbles a little bit, so if your partner holds it steady, that will help. Okay? So if you got any problem, you raise your hand or scream and shout, dance, and we'll come help you. You got 20 minutes to do 2 coping pieces. You've got 2 pieces of wood. Doesn't matter how you use them, just cope one end with one piece, then the other end you use to cope the other one. But as close as you can get it. And that's it. You ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. You got 20 minutes. Now, Kevin and I will be walking around to look for things that you need help with. That's a good pencil action. Don't bend the pencil too much. Don't bend the pencil too much. Bring it in on the slope. You see, go over here. See the slope of the pencil? So that's the slope. Not that, not that. Just like that. And your partner's got to hold that tight. Okay, either one. Doesn't matter which one. You're just going for a corner. So you're going to put that up like that. Square that right in. It's got to be perfectly squared in down here on the bottom. Are you perfectly square and flush? Now the pencil, let me see your pencil action. No. You're going with an action. You see it bending way over? That'll go under when you get here. You don't want this because it's out. What you want is the slope of the pencil here is against. You see how the slope of the pencil is against that? That'll give you a good line. Okay? You're not holding it square up. That might give a problem. You're laying it on your shoulder instead of holding it straight, just to make sure, well, you got it pretty close. Now, take a look at what your pencil is doing. Wait a minute, before you get too many lines there. Is that we don't want this because the pencil will be way out. We don't want this because your pencil's way in the hole. We want to follow the line of the pencil cut. So if you put it like that, it stays straight. And that's hard to do in the curve, but that's what we're after. You got a good drawing on there? That's looking good. One way out there, that's okay. Yeah, that should work. Now let's just see how well it matches up with this. Put that square. Yeah, it's looking good. That's going to get you close enough that you can fiddle with it. Okay, good. Now, if you want to really do that, I'll teach you a lazy man's secret. There's all these clamps. If you want to open it up, you just hang it. Now, where are you going to be working from? There, you want to work there, there. You can catch it like that, or you can easier yet, you catch it from here, then you got to twist just a little to the side. You got to come, yeah, that works. Reach under, or you can pull it up from there. There you go. And then you tighten it. Who's cutting? Okay. Yeah, I was going to turn you around. I saw you on the screen and I was going to turn you around. Oh, don't worry much about that. That's actually looking pretty good. Let's go to work on the curve. Now remember, what you really want to watch for is the curve and not the wood. Now, it seems to be too stuck, so you're forcing too hard. Grab it yourself. What you want to do is a real light, just barely graze it, touch. That moves, right? Well, that's enough to get you started. Because once you get started, you feel it bites easier. Now now you have to be careful. The blade has to stay right in line with your line. So as you go, you got to turn. So, okay, so do that little bit, and then you got to come over here and chase it this way. I was going to say stop, and she stopped. You stopped. Okay. You know what you're doing. Oh, you're struggling. I see far too much muscle. Far too much muscle. Stop. Stop. Okay, go back in. I want to just position you.
Sure.
See the angle you've got here?
Yeah.
That's not going to go with your curves and everything else. Okay? So, and you're good because you're approaching, so it's not a real problem. Try to get in the habit of staying straight up and down. And if it's giving you trouble, work mostly in this part of the blade.
Okay.
Because you have a lot more control. You feel that?
Yeah.
Now, if you want to hold this hand, put it here. Because that's on the other side of the blade. You follow me? Straighten it out again. Yeah. You have a tendency to lean forward. Now watch the wood. You have to watch the wood and blow the dust off pretty carefully. So all of that will probably need to be carved out a little bit. But don't worry yet. Let's work our way there. You can come up here. Okay? But get into the sense. Get down there again just to start in here. I want to get you started. Again, you see the angle? Okay. 1, you want that angle. 2, you want, go ahead. You want little tiny choppy. Imagine yourself being a little nervous Japanese guy. Okay. I mean, they do, and they sort of wince in a special way. At least the ones I practiced with. Now you got to make a curve, so you got to be careful. If you're missing the curve, back off, and okay, let me just show you how to back off. No, just a little bit. Now you want to turn it just a little and cut, because all I want to do is change my angle. Now you're not pushing forward. Yeah. And that little action, you see how much control you're getting? By small little actions. Now you're getting back to the slant. Now if you're going to be hitting the table, you might have to move the whole board out a little bit more. As soon as you get to, at some point in that curve, this is going to hit the table, and you got to switch. Now, understand it only cuts on the pull stroke, but you're using it as if you're cutting forward with a regular saw, because the forward stroke does nothing. It's the downstroke. That helps to just remember, because when you want to put pressure on is on the downstroke. The upstroke is just to get back up to the top, because it does no cutting on the upstroke. You're getting close. But now you don't want an angle like that, because we need it kind of straight up. Okay, that's not bad, but you kind of got to straighten this whole angle up. You'll find much more accurate work if you come over here and get down low. It's uncomfortable, but are you left-handed?
Yeah.
Okay.
You noticed that, eh?
Yeah. No, then what we do is open it up for you. Okay. Make it in an easier position. Now what I want to do is imagine a nervous little Japanese carpenter Just barely moving it. Yeah, yeah. Get into the jig. Whoa, whoa, whoa. That's it. Because the blade started going that way. Yes. You see, the tiny little action is more efficient. It's not muscle that we want. So you got some really weird curves. I don't care. It's undercut. It's going to be in the back anyway. I'm happy with that. But it is a weird curve, so you got to keep control of that. Okay, you knocked off the bump here pretty much, but we'll see what that looks like later. So you got that little piece to take off. Then you should be then going with the saw, with the coping. Well, you can do that little shot. Is that sticking out? No, that's the smooth cut. Go ahead and knock that piece off. But the jigsaw is not going to do the job for this part. So you're going to have to get your coping saw out. And let's move that in on the table. Go like that. Now you want to, if you're going to use this hand, use it here. That's the top of the blade. That's where the action is. That's right. Now you're forcing a lot. I would rather see a gentle action in terms of the cut, moving up and down smoothly, just little short cuts. Don't try to force it into the wood. You just want to rest there. The blade is sharp enough to do its own job. But you're much better off going than going in big strokes, because the big strokes start with one angle and finish with a different angle. The little strokes are always in the same place. Not bad, not bad. Now, if you want to, just grab this, put it up there, and we're missing a bunch of stuff. So you had a curve that you drew way off, because this should be sticking out into that hole. So there was a curve that came down here. Maybe you didn't get it in the pencil mark. Okay, let's just, for the fun, mark another one up here. Grab your pencil. Now, yeah, now you don't want to go, you see what, little detail here. If you're out here, you see the lead is away from the wall. And if I'm in here, the lead is too far underneath. So I follow the slope of the cut of the pencil. So I get the pencil like that. So that it's just going down to the edge. Now, don't draw until I get this in the right place again. Where do we want to go? About like that. Is that lined up? Okay. Go for that. Okay. No. You want to get it straight up and down and come in here and get that little dimple. That dimple was missing. And you see we're going to come around and follow that in. That's the big piece you missed. Now finish that off. Should have the same kind of mark. Now get your pencil up. Flush like that. Okay. And then I need a line right with this line here, this top piece. It's got to come right off the end like that. That's the end of it, so we can join those two together. Okay, and then you come back and clean this up a little freehand. Make it dark enough you can see it. And there's a bump here. Now compare that to your cut. You're almost straight across. Okay? So you want to go for another try, or you want him to do one first? Okay, you do one, and then you come back, and we'll draw it for you again and do that. But it's just, as you can see, that's not going to fit at all. Okay? So that's why we do it on the end of the board before cutting our board to length. Everybody makes mistakes like that. And it's either, or they don't make that mistake, but they make a mistake cutting. You want to move up. You want to cut that one? Come on over and steady the table for him. I've seen you work before, so I know you can do it. Okay? So just don't get nervous. Just relax into it. Yeah, it's good that he's making that darker so you can see it in the light. Now, don't try to get too close with the jigsaw. We'll get rid of the weight. Now, if you really want to be a jigsaw master and not go to the coping saw, you would actually cut it like this. Chuk, 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 chuk. Okay? So if you wanted to do that, you could, or you learn to use the coping saw. Learn to use the coping saw is good because it's a backfall. Everything else fails you. No more batteries for your jigsaw. You got one joint to go home. Everything power saw. Oh yeah, log cabin, but it was big joints. You had a margin for error like that. Yeah, but you had a margin for error about that big, huh? Yeah, that's right. That's right. How'd you do with yours? Oh, it looks a little pronounced. Okay.
It needs a little fixing.
Why is this moving all over? Oh, because you're all the way down to the end of the clamp without clamping. You were at the end of the screw drive. Yeah, you needed to loosen the screw part up and then tighten the other and then tighten the screw. Okay. Now, are you left-handed? Yeah? Now, right-handed or left? Okay, now wait a minute, stop. I want you just to see the angle that you're working at. You see that angle there? It's going way out, and that's going to give you trouble. So let's just straighten this back up. Tighten the saw a bit so it stays put. Now, you're going to come back in here. If you want to, you see I can turn this just a little bit and get the blade at a little bit of an angle. That could be useful for you right in this position because it means now your handle is out here, but you're cutting this way. You've got to pay attention to what you're cutting. You can actually turn it around backwards and draw with it. So it's a way that you can go in and drop a blade in the hole, put the saw back together, and then cut the hole. That's good. I'd much rather see you using two hands with a gentle stroke because then you've got some control over where you are. Now, if you're having trouble making that corner, you always make it too much on the scrap side. So if you back up, oh, now you're running out of room here. You need to come from the other side. So let's straighten that blade back out. Unscrew the handle. Move the wing. Okay, let's tighten up the handle. Okay. Now get down on your knees so you can work on it. Yeah. Now you got your power all in the right place. Okay, now you see you were trying with a power shot, you almost ran too far. So don't use a lot of power. Don't force it forward. Just go gently. Now you need that angle to change. So you got to come out again and try again. Or you got to cut this little tip off here. If you take that off, you can attack with a different angle. You're forcing far too much. You're forcing far too much. Get the action going and move slowly into the wood. That's right. That's right. It's not a muscle job. Not at all. Now you can start paying attention to your blade. You want it not leaning out this way. Okay, keep going. You got it. Yeah, you're getting it. Now you don't have to move that. You can move get straight up and down. Straight up and down. Easy. Okay. Not too bad. You got to come back and cut that away a bit, but go ahead and finish you can come in from there. It's a straight cut on that side. Stay on the scrap side of the line. And get your blade tipped this way, not the other. Well, actually, we want the top piece straight. Top piece straight up and down. Okay, go ahead. You can cut right in deep if you want to, because that's scrap. Okay, now stop. Stop. Pull it out. Cut this little piece off. I'll show you why in a minute. Stop. You have to make the other cut. No, don't force it. Take the cut. Okay. Now that allows you to go in. You see? You just made yourself an entry point to get in on that. And you go a little bit into the curve, and then you come this way. These guys finished? These guys finished? What did it look like? Who is this? Come on up. Okay. Which one did you do? You did that side. Okay. Okay, come down with me. Stick your head down over here. Not bad.
Yeah,
you see?
A little bit of gap there.
Yeah. And it's actually pretty close. Now if we go the other side over here, that's looking pretty good. We missed the dimple here, but that's not serious. But that's now as I straighten it out, the crack grows. See the crack here? It grows, which tells me this. Yeah, take a look at it. It's proud this way instead of relieved that way. We only have 5 seconds left, so you can't correct it. But if it did the same angle in the other direction, then the white part would be down tight. So if we're going to cut the back relief, we want to go back like that. The time is up. For first coping, it's all a good job. What's it look like? Get your glove out of the way. Oh, not bad. Not bad. I mean, that's close enough for a good hide. That is. What's the other one look like? What's the other one look like? Oh, you got to get down flat. A little rough there. That's a little bit rougher. And also, if you look at the crack here, that means that it's bent. The bottom is coming out this way instead of going under.
Yeah, it's not cut straight.
Well, straight is not really what we're after. We want undercut so that the white part touches. And if this part touches, the white can't touch. So the white is our guide. So if we get the crap out of the way on the backside by cutting it slightly, just the same angle you have here, but in the other direction. Okay, so it's just always that undercut, just out of square and the other side. Okay. I think that was a pretty good experience. As I guessed, we only got one cope done from each of you, but what's it finally look like? Is it good? Yeah. Well, you see, what's interesting about it is it's really pretty much there. And if you just remove a couple of high spots, the whole thing would move over and come in. You're really close. And just a little touching, if we had files, you could file that down to get it. Okay, judges made a decision.
Got the winner of Team 2 right here.
Team 2 right here. Hey. I've seen some familiar faces. Who else is Team 2? You are. Come on up. So where are you from?
I'm from Summer Beaver.
Summer Beaver. Yeah. And where?
Marcel Beardy
From
from Briston.
Briston.
Marcel, congratulations.
Okay.
Great job.
Oh, he did all the work.
I love the handshake. That was a good spirit.
Yo. The last contest of the day. You got to smile. You got it? Do we have a photographer that wants that? No? Okay. That's it. Thank you, guys. Good show. So we've...
You let everybody to visit the booths.
Yeah?
The trade show. The draws for each booth is going to be at 4 o'clock. So if they want part of the draw, visit each.
Okay. Over in the trade show, they're just telling me that at 4 o'clock they have the draws for all the prizes. So if you want it, if you put in for a draw, get at the trade show for 4 o'clock. What time is it now? It's 3:20. So at 4 o'clock there's a draw. You go and visit them. I think that we had a successful day of learning. I think that the group of students, I know, they've done an excellent job. When I compare what they're doing today to what they did yesterday when we started from scratch, I think it's gone a long ways. And what encouraged me the most was to watch the students paired up with somebody they didn't know, and they were able to involve as a team. And that's really a good experience and something that I was really happy to see evolve. And looking at the smiles, there's a bit of pride going on here. That's good stuff. Okay. Thank you very much. Now, tomorrow afternoon, right after lunch, I'm actually giving one of the sessions, one of the technical sessions, and the students are all invited because students, you're seeing me in the morning. We're going to work on some tools again tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow afternoon at the session, I'm doing a session on maintenance, on home maintenance, but I'm doing it from the perspective of how do we increase the housing stock in the community by way of maintenance and by way of youth, and tying that all together. So if you're interested, I'm doing that at, 1 o'clock or something after lunch. So thank you very much. It's been fun all day long. You've stuck with it. It's a scramble. It's chaotic, but it works. Thank you.